Hey, what is up, everyone? It's Odin here. Once again, drawing. uh, Apologize. The last few videos have been kind of dark, personal shit, and it's fine. And I did lose a little motivation and for drawing, but we're back. Working on this page, and yeah, I was like, enough of this grimness. Let's get back to what we want to be doing. So once again, as per usual, I'm drinking a Boilermaker. Some people say don't drink and draw, but I don't subscribe to that. I have pretty much drawn this whole book doing that because it's in the evening when I'm done with my day and I want to have a drink. And because if you don't know, I have a full-time job. I go to that job, come home, and then it's time to draw. Between eating and whatever other shit I got to do. So, drawing this page, it's not the two-page spread. That was actually following this one. So once this is done, we're working on the two-page spread. This is page 41, or 42, actually. And I have to add some things. So here, where you can see my pen, I forgot this girl's, I don't have a name or a term for them. She was connected to all these hoses and wires, and a lot of them were into these like flange connectors that were embedded in her body, on her arms and shoulders. So I drew this one, and luckily I left a little space in the shadowing area of her shoulder to put those in because I almost forgot. One thing I will mention, I hardly pencil anything at all. I do pencils underneath, but they're so light and so vague, and they can change at any moment because I'm doing all the inks, I'm doing everything, so I can do whatever the fuck I want. But I hardly pencil. Everything is mostly ink. And I shared something on Twitter, and I got this great compliment because when you when you're doing it this way and you're hardly penciling anything at all and you're just relying on your ink work, this was a great compliment. Some gal said, wow, the inks are so clean. I think my inks are sketchy, like very sketchy, and I've seen sketchier obviously, but I've seen like good inkers and good solid crisp ink lines, and I go, man, why can't I get mine to look like that? I don't have the patience or the time to like put that kind of like level of meticulousness into the inks, so they turn out very sketchy because I'm almost drawing them as I go, not over pencils. They're like, oh yeah, I think I should add this or I should do that. I'm just doing it in ink. So to hear that the inks looked very clean to this person, which I could argue it was one particular page where they were a little cleaner than some of the other stuff, but was quite a compliment. So that said, but that's a little insight to how I do things. Is it's just how I draw. I've hated pencils, but I also don't fancy myself an inker. But I love drawing with ink, so I love penciling with ink. If that makes any sense, which I'm sure it does to some. But yeah. So I do often get asked, and I think, this is something that's fixed. About influences, and I always hate citing influences because you say somebody and they go, well, that guy is amazing, and you're kind of amateurish comparatively, and I'm like, well, just because they're an influence doesn't mean I think I'm on their level, or even that I feel that my artwork looks like theirs. So one of my biggest influences would be, in an overall sense, but definitely in an art sense, was Todd McFarlane. Um, and there's things that I'll do that'll kind of remind me of Todd McFarlane, but again, I don't like saying, oh, this person was an influence, because they're like, hey, your art doesn't look like that, and I'm like, yeah, so I almost say like who inspired me rather than who influenced me, because I feel I do what I do. It might look like somebody, it might not, and when I was in a band, you'd get that a lot, and people would be like, oh, you remind me of this, and I'm like, really? That's what we remind you of? I don't think we sound like them at all. Or they would say some band that I fucking hated, and I'm like, I don't like that, man. Like, don't tell me that. So, yeah, it's and then I've gotten that from art before, like from drawing, and people go, well, this is who you remind me of, and it's always flattering because it's a famous artist, or they wouldn't even know who it was. They wouldn't say you remind me of some guy no one's ever heard of, because that's, for one, they haven't heard of. Nobody has. But I do find that so I say Todd McFarlane. Sorry, I'm going to change back to this. There was a certain style that was kind of rare, but there was a couple people doing it in the 90s that just spoke to me. And again, I don't feel my style even represents these people. They just influenced me and inspired me to want to make comics and draw. Probably the biggest of all of them. So I said Todd McFarlane first, but I don't think he was the biggest. The one who inspired me the most, made me want to draw, was Simon Bisley. I remember buying the first, well, it was a mini-series. It was Lobo's Back. And issue number 1, I thought it had to be like this rare comic or something, because it was at the comic shop I went to. They had it on the wall. And, with all their, like, expensive $200 comics and shit. And I knew it wasn't $200, but I was like, but I would see it in that image of Lobo's Back, and Simon Bisley just drew, like, the coolest muscle kind of poses. Not just even the muscles, which he drew amazing muscles, but, he had, like, a slight cant on his hips. And he just looked badass, and he had that cropped kind of leather vest or whatever. And it said, "Bite me, fanboy." I saw that there, and I was like, man. So I didn't even ask how much it was. I just started saving money, because I was like, I want to buy that book. I didn't know much about comics, or like which ones were expensive and what was worth what. So I went in with like $50. I was like, I'm ready to buy this comic. I doubt it's more than 50, but we'll find out, And I think he sold it to me for like $5 or $8 or something like that. It was like, I had that wad that I'd saved up, and I go, how much is Lobo's Back number 1 up there? And he goes, oh, that like $8 or $5, whatever he said. I was just like, sold, I'll take it. To this day, it's like my prized possession. It's not worth anything. It's not signed by Simon Bisley or anything. But, and then the interior art was so, again, like sketchy. Like, I'm sure Simon Bisley probably did something similar where he just inks, but he had his own stream of consciousness kind of style that he's like, yeah, just flow with it. This is what we do. So, I don't know what his process is, but that book opened the floodgates for a whole new style because everything seemed so generic. I don't have much else to work on this, and I start drawing, I forget what I'm talking about. Everything's so generic in a lot of ways. But at that time, artists were starting to explode, so there was like all this generic books, and the art was lame. And then there was like these superstar guys that ended up being like Image and stuff. That would stand out, but there was some that didn't go to Image. Like Sienkiewicz was another one, in that same kind of feel as Bisley. You know, like it was just very free. It didn't seem like they had some editor going like, that's too crazy looking. I don't know if that's gonna sell. You know, it's like, no, it sells because it's fucking badass. You know, Jay Lee was another one like that. And I remember when Frank Miller was kind of like that too. I remember when Jim Lee dipped his toe in that style for a little bit with Death Blow, which I loved. I was like, I thought Jim Lee was on another level anyway, but it was always so clean, and it had Scott Williams inking, and I was like, yeah, like this is so clean. This is like comics. This is what they should look like. They're so. But then when he did Death Blow, I'm like, oh man, he's on a whole nother level. He's gonna like, but it didn't last for whatever reason, But you can catch Jaden Lee's Twitch or his YouTube sometimes where he's doing a drawing stream, and he is really free with it when he's inking himself. So Scott Williams is really the one who brought that. I mean, Jim had a very clean. He's kind of a meticulous-minded person, you can tell, but Scott Williams brought that really clean ink and a very unique style of inks, which changed how people were drawing, I think. I think it was Scott Williams ink in a lot of ways. Because when I was a kid, you didn't always know, like, you're adding value with lines, shadow. But he would have these cool line work. But as a kid, you don't know. And so you're just like, it was appealing. It was pleasant to the eyes. But there was no, I didn't know why there was like 3 hatch lines just kind of like off and to nowhere, to know that that's creating contour or something. I'm just like, those lines are cool. I don't know why they're there, And so when I was young and first started drawing, I was just kind of like emulating that and like trying to get lines that looked like Scott Williams inks, basically. Liefeld, he did some similar things where you're like, that doesn't make any sense, but it looks cool. So I'm going to add those kind of lines. Because I remember I would draw basically the same image every time. It would be like the jawbone would look, or not the jawbone, the cheekbone would look just like what I had seen Jim Lee and Scott Williams do. And I used that same looking shadow and hatching on every cheekbone I ever drew for like, even to this day. But so it's funny as like people mention influences or what inspired you, because like my biggest inspiration would always be Frank Frazetta. And I don't paint, I don't draw like him, like of course I wish I did, but I don't. I want to do my own thing, but that said, I can't say he's like an influence because nothing I do seems anything like Frazetta. But in inspiration wise, he was the biggest, because from the time I was very little, I remember my oldest brother's Conan books, some other books that had Frank Frazetta, and like some of the iconic imagery of his paintings stuck with me. And the reason why I think this is why concept art is so amazing, but like something about Frazetta's paintings and any good fantasy or sci-fi horror artist can do this, and that's why they would throw these images onto a book cover, even if the image had nothing to do with the content of the book. They would do that with horror comics all the time. It'd be like this gruesome image on the cover, and then you're like looking for that story, and it's not in there, you know. But what I thought was amazing was you could look at a Frazetta piece, and I think he had it down better or as good as anybody ever has. And your mind would see a story. It would create a story on its own, just from one image. So there's, I can't remember the names of his paintings, but there's one where the guy's mushing his polar bears through this mountain, snowy mountain. So he's on a sled being pulled by polar bears on this snow-capped mountain. And even if your mind doesn't create a story, it creates the questions that are intriguing. You go, why? Why? How the fuck does this guy have a sled of polar bears? What is he doing on this mountain in the snow in the middle of nowhere, you know? Another one I think of, because again, it was like the snowy ones for whatever reason, they're popping in my brain. It was a Conan cover. I can't remember which book. No, I just had a Conan book sitting there. I was like, I wonder if it's that one, but it's not. I think it's Conan vs. Frost Giants, but they're just like battling in the snow in the woods. You're like, how the fuck did they end up there to battle? And you learn, you know. So those were super inspiring. I don't feel that my, you know, I'm nowhere on any kind of level of that, but my work doesn't look anything like that. But man, inspiring, and I mean from a young age. So, you know, like, what are those things that like, created a creative person in you? You know, like what fucked up things did you see that like made you want to, that inspired creativity in you? One of the ones I referenced was the movie The Thing, John Carpenter, with Kurt Russell. I saw it when I was like, I mean, I couldn't have been more than 5. I don't think I was in kindergarten yet. So maybe 4. So at the drive-in, they show 2 feature films. And the first one's kind of like tame, and the second one's kind of fucked up as the kids go to sleep or whatever, which is the case for me. So I remember at the drive-in with my dad, and I don't remember the first movie. Why would I? I know I fell asleep to the second movie and woke up, and they're putting like defibrillator paddles on a guy's stomach. The stomach opens up, swallows the arms, chomps down on him. The guy pulls up his arms, they're nubs, bleeding everywhere. And then this big head comes out of the guy's belly with tentacles, and it's half head, half alien, and it's screaming. And I woke up at this part just like, you know, so why would I remember the first movie? Who gives a shit about that? I saw that and had nightmares. But shit, the nightmares, all that stuff, like, inspired creativity in me. I always wanted to like capture that intensity and craziness, you know, like what I saw, like, you know. Again, Conan, like the movies, the Conan movies. My oldest brother was a D&D nerd. He probably wouldn't want me to call him a nerd, but he played D&D. He would have to admit it. Anybody who played D&D in the 80s, you were a nerd. But he was into like fantasy, so he had like the basement at the house, and he called it his dungeon, and he'd have like coat of arms hanging up and all his D&D stuff and the dice for role-playing games were the coolest shit, but he would get mad if little 4-year-old me was like messing with his shit. But he was like babysitting us or something, and we watched Conan the Barbarian and Conan the Destroyer, and I was just like, so at that age I had He-Man, and I don't know which came first, Conan or He-Man, in my world anyway. But like the kid version, I had He-Man, and it was like, He-Man's cool. And then I was like watching He-Man, only like way badass, way cooler, live action with Arnold. And say what you will, like I know a lot of like purists, Robert Howard, Conan fans hated the movies. I came into them at the right time. I'll always have a very fond place in my heart because I thought they were the coolest shit ever. Like I just was blown away that there was like people fighting in weird situations, going up into castles, and people turning into monsters, morphing into snakes. You know, I was like, doesn't get much cooler than this, you know. And like I said, so at a young age I was like, and that's like almost like a drug. It's like I've been chasing that dragon like a heroin addict. No. But yeah, I just wanted to shift gears with this video and not talk about stupid shit. I wanted to talk about comics and get back to like drawing, and so I got motivation back, got to drawing again, and it's not a great page. It was not particularly happy with it, but it's good enough. Like I'm not going to redraw it. There's been 2 pages so far that I've got all the way to the end, inked and everything, and I just went, no, fuck that, redraw it. So I've done that twice, but this one's not in the dustbin. It's not one of the best pages in the book, but but it's the one that you're looking at right now, so hopefully it's a decent enough preview. Yeah, and I've been hesitant to say story-wise, even though it would clear my name from somebody who accuses me of stealing their idea. But part of it is I've been sharing so much imagery that if I give too clear of a synopsis, it'll almost shoot myself in the foot a little bit. So, and plus I want to come up with, I still haven't particularly come up with like an elevator pitch or a decent synopsis, and I have written one, but I gotta make it more concise, succinct, because there's so much I want to say, but then it's like, that's the whole point of elevator pitch is, it's got to be quick. And I used to be really good at being succinct and summing things up. I always thought I was good. Actually, I'm much more long-winded than I ever realized. Twitter made me realize that. So I don't use Twitter that much. I try to promote this there, but not very aggressively. But when I was in a band, there's 4 members, and we decided, hey, we're going to each cover one social media platform. And I just got stuck with Twitter, and here I was, the singer, the writer, and they gave me the one with the least ability to be wordy, it was like a good object lesson for me in like being succinct. But like my bass player did Facebook, and our drummer did Instagram. What did Antonio do? Like those are the 3. I don't know what Antonio did. He just got high. But yeah, I was in charge of the band Twitter page, so, which ended up becoming my personal. So Anyway, oh, really quick, just because it's sitting down here. Got this score. Yeah. At Goodwill. Best $5 I ever spent. We'll see. So I gotta actually do it here soon. And actually grow Richard Simmons' hair. And his chest fro, which is great. Too funny not to share. Anyway, like I said, I just wanted to shift directions and let you guys know that anyone who watches this, that we're still going. You know, doesn't matter what life dumps on you or what big decisions you have coming your way, or you know, people talking negatively about you, or just being influenced so much by situations, things, people around you. When you're fueled and motivated and have a burning desire, you can't let that flame extinguish. And you know, I've said it before, like, this book, it's going to be my first foray into the world of comic books. It's not going to be the greatest, but it's going to be awesome because it's the first step. It's the first completed book I'll ever have made, and it's a launching point. So I'm really excited for it. Like I said, I know it's just going to be better and better. Like, I've learned so much, and once it's time to put this book out, I'll learn so much more. And I'm repeating a lot of the same things I'm saying, but it's like I'm saying them to myself. And this video, all the videos I make, a lot of it's for myself. I don't know who watches this, but I will say that it helps me, because I don't bug people with my problems, like, in person. They ask how I'm doing. I'm always doing good, you know, and I am, you know, like, I've had a lot of moments where I've been beaten down with shit going on in life and got really introspective and, you know, go to a little bit of a dark place and you go, what am I doing? What am I doing? But it's never the end of the game, you know? Like, there's highs and lows. When you're on the mountain, enjoy it, but don't get too high because you're going to come down again. And when you're in the valley and you feel like the mountain's unreachable, just know that, like, that's not the end of the story. And the valley, someone, I don't know, I heard some wise saying of, like, the valley's where all the nutrients are. That's where things grow. So when you're on the mountain, sure, you conquered. You've arrived at some pinnacle, but you're not getting fed up there. Where you really find out who you are, where you really learn, where you really get to the nutrients of life, is in the Lonesome Valley. And it could be lonesome, you know. It's not bad. And if you run from it, I mean, you're not gonna. Nobody fully embraces it as much as we can know that, hey, this is where the nutrients are. This is, you know, all these fine things to say. But you can't run from it. You still have to stick and move and bob and weave and live your life, and just know that you keep going, good things will come. You know, again, you're going to have the peaks and valleys. And the best, most amazing people that I've known kind of stay at a, you know, whether they're up here or down here, they stay here. And That means they don't get too high. They don't get too big for their britches. They don't get so low that they're useless. So that's where you gotta be as much as possible. And it's not always easy, but as much as possible. And that's what I try to teach my kids is people who have, I guess, inner peace for the most part, and a strong sense of identity and who they are. You're still going to have the ups and downs regardless, but you're going to have an evenness about you that will carry you through, and other people will recognize it. You'll get positions of influence because other people will go, when the shit goes down, that's somebody that isn't going to get too off course. So anyway, I'll just say all this shit, but once want to say that like always, hope everyone out there, if you're watching this, that you're doing amazing, that you're pure awesome in your life, and whether you're at the peak or the valley, that you can maintain a good evenness in your awesomeness. And with that, take care. This is Odin. See ya.